Welcome everyone to this episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio. Mr. Grady is the victim of some computer digital crises stuff, so he won't be joining us today. I do have Norbert Ore from Strategis, who is an economist and does a report of the ISMs on a global basis, as well as North America. And we find it very insightful and consistent to a great degree with all the other various reports that have come out in the recent weeks, including the U.S. Census Bureau with regards to job counts and so on. So Norbert Ore, welcome.
Thank you and good morning.
Thank you. We're going to be talking about your report, and let's get right to it.
Okay.
The November 21st Business Survey Insights, and here we are.
Let's set the stage just a little bit, if we can, Lou.
Sure.
I'm using as a basis of the work that I do in terms of surveys. I'm using the 18 different surveys that some of them are domestic, some of them are international, but collectively it's the surveys that I think show significant importance. And as you know, I did the ISM survey for 15 years. And so I've watched this data, participated in it. I've been around it for probably 30 years and fascinated by it, and still find it that way. So it's a way of looking at month over month change. It's not about how fast are we growing. It's the fact that we are growing. And so all of my work is based on that. Most of what I do is away from the domestic ISM services and manufacturing surveys. I follow those, but I feel like they get a good coverage and proper coverage from that. So I focus on the 16 other surveys that we work with. And I'm not opposed to a comment here or there on the domestic surveys, but certainly more importantly, the 16 that we're talking about. I've got right at the top of the list this month, the Brazil. Now I know that's one of your favorites, and always interested in
Correct.
What's going on with it. So
That's correct.
You have anything you want to preface my comments on Brazil with?
Well, yes. I mean, the question is, does Brazil ever get out of its own way?
And the answer is probably not. Are we really able to see any countries that get out of their own way? There's a struggle there.
Okay, I guess my main point about Brazil is not so much their financial and manufacturing and service growth. It's more about the fact that they've got more things impeding them from doing it, like crime, corruption, drugs, and all these other headwinds.
Right.
And we have some of those same headwinds here, but we seem to progress through it. One of my concerns, and I'm not going to be talking political, but my personal feeling is that nothing's getting done in government, and if there ever was a time that we needed a government to operate fully and powerfully and with the full concern of the American public, it's now, and we don't have it.
Yeah.
And that somewhere along the line affects these numbers somewhere. Because you start losing confidence. I mean, I don't know. I heard this last night that there was a TV commercial with Peloton, and the person who was riding the Peloton in the commercial had a heart attack. Did you hear about this?
No.
Had a heart attack. They filmed it, had a heart attack, and yesterday Peloton stock went down 11.8%.
Mm.
So, I mean, you want to talk about madness. I mean, I can't believe that people actually reacted to that when an actor had a heart attack.
Right.
And it affected the stock market. 10% of what is it, a $4 billion company or something like that?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. Well, and I think you said you don't want to talk politics, and I honestly believe we're not talking politics. We're talking leadership.
Very good. Yes, you're right. There is a distinction there. I stand corrected.
To do that. So, okay, we've beat up Brazil pretty good.
What's happening in Canada?
Canada follows the United States.
Right.
Canada, in so many ways, looks like the 51st state.
Right.
When the U.S. does well, Canada does almost as well. And when the U.S. declines, Canada doesn't decline as much as the U.S. does. So they're in a very good position to continue to do well. And I think right now the message that I get from all of the data that we're looking at is that things seem to be better than they really are. And I made one of my rare trips to the grocery store yesterday with my wife.
You and I are so much alike.
And what I found was in previous trips we weren't seeing the shortage of product. But yesterday, it was remarkable how many shelves were empty at the grocery store, because it is impacting, and it's probably going to continue to be impacted. I'm talking about basic fundamental things that we just couldn't get. It's not at a critical stage yet. I don't think it'll necessarily go to a critical stage, but it's a sign of the times of what we see. And what I'm seeing is a narrowing of the recovery. The two ISM surveys, they both track the number of industries that are expanding. And if you look at the industries, the manufacturing PMI has been consistently 16, 17 out of 18 industries that are growing. That dropped down this month to 13 of 18 industries. And so that's the first thing I look for, is for the data to narrow, and you get down to where more industries, for instance, the chemical industry, I always follow it for manufacturing, because it's pretty much the bellwether industry for manufacturing. Everybody in manufacturing uses chemicals in one form or another. And then you have the auto companies that use paints, which are chemicals that we look at. They use a tremendous amount of paint and so on. If they're down at 12 million cars on an annual basis, which is where they are, that's a lot of paint that doesn't need to be made. From that. Manufacturing new orders 10 of 18 industries were growing. So that's dropped down from that. Over on the services side, it's not quite as much. Services, we have to remember services are coincident. They're not a leading indicator. So I always look at it from standpoint. If you look out the window and see it raining, it's not a very big call to say it's raining.
Correct.
If you look out and there's not raining and you're expecting rain, that's more of a leading indicator if you can get something from that. So it's the services are into their portion of the recovery, where we start to see employment come back, not coming back as fast as we would like for it to, but indeed coming back. And services are 4 times larger than manufacturing, so it's that much more important to the economy that they have that.
However, manufacturing employment last week, they broke through the million mark of new available jobs in manufacturing. We're already at a 2.5 million deficit in people. So if just using those 2 sets of numbers, we can never reach the peak, the optimum position, because we're already 1 million in the hole, plus another 2.5 million, and people are retiring at the rate of 10,000 a day in this country. So we have a serious problem. And as you pointed out, things don't always look like they are. The numbers we're looking at backlog, we're looking at new orders, we're looking at all these things that haven't been made yet.
Right.
They're on the books, but does it ever make it to the bank? And that's one of the fears I have. All Metals and Forge Group, our sales have increased significantly over these last 4, 5, 6 months. And our backlog is quite large. And I couldn't guarantee though what the end number is going to be. There's shortages, steel delivery delays, logistics, all these things that are negatively impacting us all at the same time. So it's an unusual time. And again, not to sound negative, let's talk about the good stuff.
Well, history says that we'll work our way through it.
Yeah.
Particularly the manufacturing sector.
Yes.
It has the ability to reinvent itself. It has the ability to focus on productivity. But you're right. I always say today, nobody is raising their child to work 3rd shift.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I was up in Massachusetts recently. My wife and I stopped off at a McDonald's to grab a Whopper. And right outside, it's a main 4-lane road, not a highway, but a 4-lane state road. And there was a McDonald's there. And outside the McDonald's was a huge sign. And I took a picture of it. And it says, now hiring 13 and 14-year-old students. I took a picture. I couldn't believe it. Could not. I mean, what about child slavery? I mean, really? 13-year-olds now could go legally get a job? They're begging for it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, those things tend to, solve themselves when they do that. And I think we'll go through this again. McDonald's is automating.
Yes.
They're just taking the labor out. At the same time, there's some positives, I guess, and expanding the base. What amazes me is what's happening there is a 13 or 14-year-old child. They're saying, I've got a multi-million-dollar investment with a drive-through sitting there, and I'm willing to turn that investment over to a 13 or 14-year-old to determine how successful I'm going to be. And that's the scary part.
Yeah, well, this is true.
Okay,
This is true.
so let me just give you some highlights from around the globe, Lou. I always like to look, one of the first indexes I look at is the what's called CIPS, or Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply. That's from the UK. And it came in at 58.1, and that's a 3-month high. I also have to note once again that since Brexit, the UK has not dipped under 50, meaning failed to grow. The UK has grown and almost significantly every month since Brexit. And so it's worked out far better than the best of the economists predicted for that.
Right.
Their prices and inputs topped a 30-year high in all of this. So they've got no complaints. If we look then at maybe a little bit of the European zone, we've got 58.4 for the collective European zone, the 8 countries that we follow there. Italy was at 62.8, which is a record high for them. France was at 55.9, which their 6-month average is 56.5. So reasonably strong for France. Germany has done well through all of this, and Germany had a 57.4 in November. So all combined, the Eurozone at 58.4 is very solid. Again, I think that looks better than it would do otherwise. I've got to plug in a camera here. There we go.
All righty.
Japan, we're looking at 52.8. Japan has never really made a strong recovery here. So hopefully they'll continue to grow at reasonable rates through the process. Let's see, who else? South Korea is down at 50.9. South Korea has not benefited to the degree that Europe and the US have benefited. And that goes with other countries in that region, Singapore, Myanmar, etc. China, both surveys, the CFLP survey is at 50.1, showing just negligible growth. And the Caixin survey is at 49.6, down 0.7. So again, Asia has struggled comparatively. They didn't make some of the choices that we made. They had more problems with the viruses, etc. So all of those things are a factor from that. So, what are we looking at? There's a commonality across the globe. Supply delays are a big problem, whether it's containers, and what I haven't seen anybody do a report on is the number of shipments that can be diverted from containers to 747s, because something like semiconductors, they don't take up a lot of space when they do that. And I suspect they didn't move by container to begin with.
Right. There is a significant increase in air freight traffic for manufacturing.
Right.
But I don't know if it can accommodate the kind of weight that we're talking about, like say for semiconductors. But you can probably put a year's worth of semiconductors in a 747.
I would think so.
I mean, we only sell
Right.
these 16 million cars. There's got to be, multiple chips in a car, but a couple of plane loads will solve the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But manufacturers, like I said, I always believe how inventive they are. Somebody was sharing a story with me about bagel production. And I guess the farther north you go, the more important bagel production becomes from that. But what they were saying was the bagel manufacturer, which would be somebody that you'd recognize their name probably, they have 10 popular bagels that they products that they produce. And so what they have done is focused on their top 4 and diverting all of the ingredients, et cetera, to make the 4 that they want. Those are the ones that keep their best customers, and that they would continue to make those to make sure their best customers get the product that they want, as opposed to trying to just supply the whole array of demand.
And you may even get some converts.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That works. I have a question. We're coming up near the top of the show, or the bottom of the show. In the news recently, there's been a lot of talk, and I don't think enough talk for American people to fully understand what the scope is. And that's in China, the Evergrande Group, the real estate developer, the largest debtor in China, has effectively gone into default on a payment of $300 billion debt to 400 international banks. Do you feel that this could be a significant headwind that's going to affect the whole pyramid?
I don't know. I've been kind of an anxious observer about what's going on with all of that.
Right.
Again, when China is involved, the first thing you should assume is it is not what it seems to be.
Got it.
And I think any of those, the ratio of banks that are in default versus the total number, et cetera, it would seem like it's spread out pretty far.
Yeah.
Usually these things are more about a panic than they are about fundamentals.
Right.
That somebody has the idea, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get out and I'm going to save my company from the cost, et cetera. But they don't do that. They don't manage to do it, and they cause everybody else to panic. So we've got a history of a lot of those things happening.
So your view is hold your cards, don't panic.
Yeah, everything says, going back to the early 2000s, everything says those who panic, the last group that panicked missed out on a 30% increase in the market.
Right. Yeah, well, that's good lesson learned.
Right, right. But
Any
I think,
any final words, Norbert, that you'd like
yeah,
to?
on this whole inflation issue,
Yeah,
uh, I lived through the 70s. I was starting my career in manufacturing and back in the 70s, and I was an energy buyer, so I saw firsthand what goes on. I am scared that we're cutting our nose off to spite our face when it comes to uh, the cost of energy, how we can best support the energy industry. And I think many of the pundits don't realize that when we talk about energy, we're talking about plastics. We're talking about a lot of manufactured product. We're talking about chemicals. We're talking that none of those can really be successful without having reasonably priced energy. And we give gasoline and fuel oil and jet fuel too much attention and not enough to the other industries that are dependent on cheap energy.
well, you can blame some of that on mainstream media, not dealing with all the issues that need to be covered, and then not those that don't need to be covered.
I think some of them, and particularly I'll pick on New York in particular, I think some of them sit on one side of their building, and their idea of going after a story is to look out the windows on the other side.
It's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth to that. Norbert, thank you very much. You're always insightful, informative, and we do enjoy transmitting the information on the PMIs around the world, because I think Americans need to know this kind of information so that they can do the right kind of marketing to the right markets. And here is a perfect piece of data that tells you where to go and where not to go. And that includes your report and PMIs and many of the 18 other ones that you've talked about. So again, thank you. Good report. Keep it up. I'm looking to see, are we going to make it to 2023 with these kinds of numbers? And I'll leave you with that question.
Yeah, I would say no. I think, and we should expect that, because it's at such a lofty level right now. The chances of going up are probably 5%, and the chances of going down are probably 95%. Now, it may be only going down to the mean, to 50, but it'll still be growing. It's just the growth is going to be slower, and everything we're doing, or a lot of what we're doing, are demand killers. And we're going to have a hard time replacing that demand.
That is true. And I would settle for high 60s.
There you go.
High 50s, sorry. I'll settle for high 50s.
Not a greedy man.
I'm not greedy. I'll take the sure thing every time. Norbert, thank you very much for the show. Have a good holiday, and we'll be talking to you next year.
Thanks, and all the best to you and yours. Take care.
Take care now. Bye-bye. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into Manufacturing Talk Radio today. Norbert Ore's information is incredibly insightful and informative, and I would think from a manufacturing standpoint, significantly important to your corporate well-being. And following all of these reports, it's important. We have the data, we have the capability, we have the technology to collect it. And I've been following it myself in my businesses for 35, 40 years easy. And we track, All Metals and Forge tracks along with these types of reports, the PMI, the ISM's PMI, Strategis, CAS Index, and so on and so forth. So anyway, have a great holiday. It's coming up very shortly. Drink safe, drive safe, be safe. Thank you. Good holidays.